Hey everyone, Kitana here and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my Astro community. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking all about Jupiter. Now Jupiter is a very benefic planet in astrology. It brings all things good. It brings prosperity, success, wealth, and abundance. And whatever house it's in your chart really determines how you can experience the benefits of that house. And overall, it's very much coined as like the lucky planet. So like I said, wherever it is, it does bring quite a bit of luck to you wherever it is in your chart. And in this video, I'm going to explain how that manifests in your life and how you can benefit from it. And I will add that Jupiter, even when it is in detriment, like if it's in Capricorn or if it has hard aspects to Saturn, even if your Jupiter is retrograde, you do benefit from Jupiter. It's such a great lucky planet that even when it's not in its best condition, it still operates pretty well. So I'm going to get right into the video. Okay, so let's start with Jupiter in the first house. First house is all about ourself. And more importantly, our identity. So when you have Jupiter in the first house, it gives you quite a bit of presence. Rihanna, for example, has Jupiter in the first, and she's a really great manifestation of it because with Jupiter in the first, it's just like you have this presence. People just notice you. Even if you are a quiet person, which you probably aren't, this can make you very extroverted, I feel like. But even if you are maybe shy or quiet, you just have this like larger than life presence. People just notice you, even if you're just walking, even if you're just like grocery shopping or just walking down the street, like people just notice you. You have a very commanding presence. Maybe even people respect you just by, I don't know, even if they don't know you, they respect you quite a bit. And overall, you can just be a very noticeable person, a very vibrant person. This also makes you very optimistic, makes you very jovial too, very happy. You're like that happy person people want to be around because you're probably always smiling and being quite happy. I will say that you do have quite a bit of confidence, and I will say you might even have like BDE. Like I think Rihanna has quite a bit of BDE and she has Jupiter in the first. But you just have this very like this confident, unapologetic, like I'm here, I'm proud, look at me type of energy. And then also you might strive to be the best. You always want to be the most noticed or the most attention. Like you always want to be the best in some way. Jupiter is all about expansion. So you're all about expanding your sense of self. You might be kind of dramatic too. Maybe your gestures or the way you move is very exaggerated. And you can also be the type to just know a lot of people. Maybe you know a lot of people in different countries, or you're very interested in like learning about different countries. Maybe you're very well traveled. Either way, you might be well known. It depends on your personality, of course. This can also be similar to like a Sag rising too. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the second house. So right away, obviously, this is a wealth placement. I talked about this in my wealth placement video. And this is because the second house is all about money. It's about finances. It's about our self-worth. It's like literally about our material possessions. So when you have Jupiter here, you have quite a bit of money, or you just have the ability to earn a lot of money. Even if you feel like you're not earning that much money, it's still better than, I would say, other people who don't have this placement. Like even when things are bad financially for you, they're still pretty good, to be honest. And I mentioned this in my wealth placement video, but a lot of billionaires have this placement. Kylie Jenner has this placement. Bill Gates has this placement. I think Jay-Z has this placement. And these are people that are very much about expanding their finances, making a lot of money. You're somebody who can stand to make a lot of money in your lifetime, potentially be a billionaire, millionaire, even just like a high six-figure earner. And you also might have a high sense of self-worth. You can be someone who feels like you deserve it all. It's kind of like opposite of Saturn in the second house. Saturn in the second house would make you kind of feel like you don't deserve it all, but I feel like with Jupiter in the second house, it's like you feel like you deserve everything, all the good things in life, all the money you can make, so therefore you go out and get it. And I think the biggest challenge, obviously, with this placement is just overspending, overindulgence. You like the finer things in life. Luxury is your standard. You're not doing anything less than luxurious, right? And that can be problematic because you can just overspend, overeat, spend like on really big things, make really huge purchases, and just not really think about it too much. Either way, you're going to make a lot of money in your lifetime, so maybe that doesn't matter. But either way, it can be very overindulgent and you can definitely, and you can definitely be an overspender. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the third house. So third house is all about communication. It's all about writing, speaking, anything having to do with communicating, the third house does rule. So given this, with Jupiter in the third house, you might have the gift of speaking. Specifically, like when you speak, people just listen. You might have you have a lot of wisdom about you. Like something, like when you say things, people just kind of resonate with it on a deeper level. You could be like a preacher, maybe even like a motivational speaker. This is a very like preachy type of placement. Like the cadence of your speech is like almost like you're like always giving a speech to someone, or you're always speaking to an audience. You have a very almost like commanding way of speaking. Even if it is in just like casual conversation, people just want to listen to you for some reason. So in that sense, what you say is very influential. Also, you might be a very optimistic person or optimistic type of speaker. Like you always have like these words of encouragement or like these positive sentiments that you give to other people. I could see you giving like really great pep talks or really just motivating people to be their best selves. And you're also somebody who speaks the truth. Speaking the truth is very important to you, and communicating that truth to other people is really important to you. And you're not the type to just lie about things. You really want to maintain that integrity and truth when you do speak to people. And also with Jupiter in the third, you might have a lot of luck with learning different languages. You can be great at picking up a language that you've never even spoken before, or you never been to that country, or you're not from that country, but you can speak another language really easily. You can learn languages easily. You just have this gift of being able to absorb knowledge very easily. You might be a very intelligent person, and because you can absorb so much knowledge, you have the gift of teaching it to other people. You can be a very great teacher, professor, not even professionally. You could just teach people things just by speaking to them casually. I think one of the challenges with this placement is that you can be very preachy, you can be very philosophical, you can kind of project your ideal. You can kind of project all of your philosophies and ideas and truths on other people, even if it is like unwarranted, like even if it's not wanted. You can just seem very preachy and very much like, oh, like I know everything type of thing, or know-it-all type of thing. It depends how it can manifest in your chart, but I think that's the challenge with Jupiter in the third, is just like being too preachy to other people. But overall, I would say you do have the gift of public speaking. You might have a gift with writing, blogging. This is the gift of someone who can be an author and sell a lot of copies just because they're such a great writer, a great blogger, a great speaker. Anything having to do with communication, you will excel at. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the fourth house. So fourth house is all about home, it's about family, it's also about emotional nourishment, it's about our intuition too. So right away, Jupiter in the fourth kind of suggests you might have been spoiled as a child. Fourth house really shows us our childhood, right? So you might have been spoiled as a child. You might have just always had more than enough. Even if you weren't necessarily spoiled, you just always had what you needed. And you might have grown up in a very supportive household, maybe a household where you learned a lot, or you traveled a lot, or you were always exposed to different cultures or different languages. And you might have always been exposed to a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and that's because you have this Jupiter influence in your fourth house. I will say the most significant thing with this placement is that you were always emotionally supported. I think that's something that's kind of hard to come by with a lot of birth charts, is like Jupiter in the fourth, because it shows that you were very emotionally nurtured by your family, emotionally supported by your family from a very young age. So that's a very beneficial placement in that sense. And because you were so emotionally supported as a child, you have no problem being emotionally expressive as an adult. So this is somebody who probably has a really great time, like, well, not a great time, but maybe you just have an easier time than most expressing your emotions to other people, or just expressing how you feel emotionally, because as a child you were always kind of supported in that sense. I think the challenge that comes with that is just being overly emotional, or just overly expressing your emotions. Of course, there's a time and place for emotions, and sometimes you can just blur that boundary. So sometimes you can just be overly emotional, but I think that's like the only challenge I would say for this placement. Okay, let's talk about Jupiter in the fifth house. So fifth house is all about creativity. It's about self-expression, socializing, dating, romance, indulgence, entertainment. I always say that the fifth house is like the fun house, because it's like everything having to do with like all things fun. And so with Jupiter in the 5th house, you are an extremely creative person. Like, really, I want to emphasize with this placement that your creativity is, like, off the charts. You might have been, like, that kid who just had so much creativity. And even as an adult, I feel like with Jupiter in the 5th, you have, like, a childlike creativity. I think a lot of us, as we become adults and stuff, we just lose a little bit of our creativity. But it's almost like with you, you never lost it. It almost gets bigger as you get older. So you do have a very expansive sense of creativity. And because of that, you might have a lot of creative hobbies. You might be somebody who's just very talented. You might be great at, like, acting and theater and dancing. Like, you're the type to, like, do it all and just have all these creative hobbies you do. And you're somebody, like I said, you have this thing where you have a lot of hobbies. So one of your hobbies might be learning about different cultures. Like, you love experiencing new foods from different countries or new languages or watching movies from different countries. This is definitely, like, the placement that probably loves, like, anime and loves watching dubbed movies or movies from, like, other countries. And you're somebody who maybe even likes to travel or have friends or social circles that are just people that you don't even, like, are where you're not from the same culture as them. And then, as I mentioned, 5th house is all about socializing and social situations. So potentially you're somebody who thrives at parties or thrives in social dynamics, depending on the, like, condition of your Jupiter. But you can just be great at, like, I don't know, being like the party animal, like the partier, the life of the party. And maybe you're somebody who always gets invited to parties or always asked to come to certain places because people know you are that, like, vibrant person at a party. And I would say the challenge, I would say there's not many challenges with Jupiter in the 5th. This is a really great placement. But I think one of the challenges is just, like, overindulgence, like overindulging in movies, food, maybe buying too many clothes or spending way too much money on food, maybe, like, overindulging when it comes to dating. Like, maybe you date too many people at once. This means you probably have, like, a popping dating life too. But yeah, just, like, the sense of overindulgence when it comes to all things fun and good in life, which is good to have, but sometimes you can just overdo it. Okay, let's talk about Jupiter in the 5th house. So 5th house is all about creativity. It's about self-expression, socializing, dating, romance, indulgence, entertainment. I always say that the 5th house is, like, the fun house because it's, like, everything having to do with, like, all things fun. And so with Jupiter in the 5th house, you are an extremely creative person. Like, really, I want to emphasize with this placement that your creativity is, like, off the charts. You might have been like that kid who just had so much creativity. And even as an adult, I feel like with Jupiter in the 5th, you have, like, a childlike creativity. I think a lot of us, as we become adults and stuff, we just lose a little bit of our creativity. But it's almost like with you, you never lost it. It almost gets bigger as you get older. So you do have a very expansive sense of creativity. And because of that, you might have a lot of creative hobbies. You might be somebody who's just very talented. You might be great at, like, acting and theater and dancing. Like, you're the type to, like, do it all and just have all these creative hobbies you do. And generally, I would say this is a very talented placement. And you're somebody, like I said, you have this thing where you have a lot of hobbies. So one of your hobbies might be learning about different cultures. Like, you love experiencing new foods from different countries or new languages or watching movies from different countries. This is definitely, like, the placement that probably loves, like, anime and loves watching dubbed movies or movies from, like, other countries. And you're somebody who maybe even likes to travel or have friends or social circles that are just people that you don't even, like, are where you're not from the same culture as them. And then, as I mentioned, 5th house is all about socializing and social situations. So potentially you're somebody who thrives at parties or thrives in social dynamics, depending on the, like, condition of your Jupiter. But you can just be great at, like, I don't know, being like the party animal, like the partier, the life of the party. And maybe you're somebody who always gets invited to parties or always asked to come to certain places because people know you are that, like, vibrant person at a party. And I would say the challenge, I would say there's not many challenges with Jupiter in the 5th. This is a really great placement. But I think one of the challenges is just, like, overindulgence, like overindulging in movies, food, maybe buying too many clothes or spending way too much money on food, maybe, like, overindulging when it comes to dating. Like, maybe you date too many people at once. This means you probably have, like, a popping dating life too. But yeah, just, like, the sense of overindulgence when it comes to all things fun and good in life, which is good to have, but sometimes you can just overdo it. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the 6th house. So 6th house is all about work ethic. It's about your job and kind of like how you fit into the daily dynamic of your job or work. 6th house is also about our daily routines and kind of like what we do on a daily basis. So when it comes to Jupiter in the 6th house, you're definitely somebody who's like a pleasure to have at work. You can be like the star employee or somebody who's just like with Jupiter in the 6th, you might have a lot of luck when it comes to job hunting. Like you always get the job that you apply for, or you always find your way into a job that you really like. You might be really well liked at work, or like I said, maybe the favorite, or just people just like to work with you because you're just really happy at work, or you seem very like jovial and friendly to other people when you are at work. And then when it comes to like your daily routine, you could be somebody who is very expansive. Maybe you're always trying to do like the bigger the better. Like you have a routine where it's like you want to fit everything into one day or do the most, or it can make you very ambitious too. Like you might want to be the best person at your job, or like the best highest ranking person. Either way, you kind of want to always expand with your daily routine. And this can make you someone with a very long to-do list, I think. I also will say that this can make you or put you in a position where, let's say you work at a job, but you work at a job where it's like you have a lot of interaction with like foreign countries. Or not even just foreign countries, but you just have like a lot of international interaction wherever you work. It doesn't really matter, but like let's say you maybe have a lot of clients from other countries, or you have maybe the people you work with are from other countries. There's just like this sense of international interaction when it comes to your workplace. And I mentioned earlier that 6th house is about diets and health as well. So this might mean that you have a lot of diets from other countries. Maybe you love trying food from like different countries. You might be like a foodie, but you love just trying like international foods. And in general, you just might like international cuisines. And you also might be a little bit of like a health nut. Maybe you're very passionate about your health. This does indicate a very healthy person in general. Given that you have a really aspected 6th house, this does give someone who is very healthy. Maybe you've always been healthy. You've never really had the flu or had any dramatic ailments or been to the hospital. This does indicate a very healthy person. And I will say one of the challenges with this placement is probably just, I think when it comes to your daily routine, you try to do too much or try to have this long to-do list that you can never really complete, or just always kind of push the boundary when it comes to your like work ethic or your daily routine, which isn't a bad thing, but I think it can border on too much, like too expansive or too overly ambitious when it comes to those aspects. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the 7th house. So 7th house is all about partnerships, marriage, and it's all about like interpersonal one-on-one relationships. So right away, this is the placement of people who just never really date people from their own culture. Like literally every person you date might be from another country or another culture than you. You might date a lot internationally or meet people internationally that you date. It also indicates you might have a lot of long distance relationships, or maybe you've already had a long distance relationship, or long distance relationships with people from international countries. And when it comes to dating, I will say this placement is very beneficial because you do benefit from the people you date. You might benefit financially or status wise. Either way, you kind of benefit from dating in a sense. Maybe you marry or date very wealthy people, very powerful people. Can kind of bleed over into friendships too, because I think people forget like 7th house is about friendships too. So you can have very powerful friends, wealthy friends. You can just attract very wealthy or powerful people or benefit from these people in a financial way because you just have like this planet of luck and abundance and the house of partnerships. This also indicates you might have a lot of friends or a very big network. Maybe you have like, I can see this manifesting as somebody with like 10 best friends or like more than 3 best friends, or you just have like a lot of friends and a lot of connections with people. You might date a lot of people, maybe just have like a lot of different relationships. You're not the type to always just be very monogamous and stuck in one relationships. You're gonna have many in your lifetime, and you probably already have had a lot of relationships in your lifetime. And lastly, I will say, since this is in the house of interpersonal relationships, you might just have a very positive influence on others. You might be very inspiring to others. And the impact that you have on people in general is just very positive. And people really see you as this very optimistic, very jovial, very friendly presence. And I think Jupiter in the 7th really does bless you when it comes to relationships. And I think maybe a challenge with Jupiter in the 7th is, I don't know, it's kind of hard to point out a challenge, but maybe you just overdo it when it comes to relationships. Maybe you try to date too many people at once, or I don't know, try to date people. I don't know, it can just manifest many different ways, but it can manifest as you just trying to date too many people, or just be with too many people romantically. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the 8th house. So 8th house is all about transformation. It's about other people's money. It's about taxes, death, and debt. And I mentioned Jupiter in the 8th in my wealth placements video. Now this is definitely a wealth placement because it indicates you might earn a large inheritance. Like I said, 8th house is all about other people's possessions, other people's money. So you might gain a lot from other people that way. This is an indicator that you might marry wealthy. Either way, you're somebody who, it's like people just give you stuff, or people want to pay you for things, or you just are good at getting money from other people. It's almost like you're a magnet for other people's money. This is a great placement for someone who you can just ask someone for money, or you probably don't even have to ask. People just give you money, give you stuff, give you gifts. This can be dating or not. In general, people just give you things, but especially when it comes to dating and relationships, you can gain a lot from other people in terms of material wealth and material possessions. And then I will add, this can be somebody who is very sexually explorative. This is someone who it's like you want to try a lot of sexual things, or you want to explore sexually. 8th house is kind of like has this sexual undertone to it, so you can be somebody who is very sexually explorative. And then on a more deeper note, 8th house does represent like deeper truths in psychology a little bit too. So you can be somebody who's very interested in psychology, or somebody who just understands like ancient wisdom, or you just understand like the deeper truths of life. You're just great at understanding and tapping into the deeper psychological truths in your life, and then just in the greater scope of life in general. And you could be somebody who just has like a lot of like spiritual wisdom, or very ancient wisdom about you. And of course, the challenge with Jupiter in the 8th is that you could be somebody who just uses other people. Like I said, you're skilled at just getting money from people, so you can just take advantage of people that way. Or maybe you just take money from the wrong person, because that can get like really sticky if you just take money from anyone or take gifts from anyone. In that sense, you could be, maybe you can be somebody who is the victim of financial abuse. So you do have to watch out from just taking things from anyone, or just using your power of persuasion, or using your power of like gaining things from other people to, in a negative way. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the 9th house. So 9th house is all about travel. It's about expansion. It's about higher knowledge, higher learning. And so right away, when it comes to Jupiter in the 9th, you might be somebody who is very lucky or blessed when it comes to travel. Generally, you could be somebody who just likes traveling, but you can be someone who just has like that travel bug. Like you always like expanding your horizons in some way. Even if it's not like literally traveling, you could be somebody who just loves learning about different cultures, learning different languages. And you can be very lucky when it comes to college and university. Like you might just get into your dream school. You might get into a really great grad school or a grad program. Anything having to do with higher knowledge, like college or university, you just excel at. Because in general, you're just somebody on a hunt for knowledge. That's what you really love in life. It's just like learning new things. This might make someone a very good teacher or professor even. You could just be really great at teaching people things or giving wisdom to other people, and they just listen to you. This is definitely a very wisdom-oriented placement. I feel like you're somebody who has a lot of wisdom about you. And then, like I said, you might gain a lot of this wisdom or knowledge through travel. You definitely learn a lot when you are traveling. You're somebody who likes to travel, who has goals of traveling if you haven't yet. And this can be characterized as someone that's like the student of the world. Like you're like a student of life. In a sense, because you just love learning things and you just like love experiencing things. I think that's the biggest thing with Jupiter in the 9th is like you just have this gift of having so many wealthy experiences, and not wealthy in the sense of money, but wealthy in the sense of it just brings you so much inner peace or inner joy or inner happiness. You just have these very valuable experiences. So yeah, in general, you just like learning about different cultures, different languages. You just love learning and you love knowledge, and especially higher knowledge too. And you're somebody who always strives for the deeper truths of life, or whatever is truthful in life, you always strive towards. You might have a very strict or high moral code as well. And honestly, I don't see a huge challenge with this placement. It depends on how it's aspected to your Jupiter, but I think a challenge could be just, I don't know, or maybe you just like, maybe when it comes to travel, maybe you just overly spend on travel, or I don't know, is that possible to like overly spend on travel? I don't know if there's like a huge challenge with Jupiter in the 9th, because Jupiter is at home in the 9th house. So let me know down below if you have any challenges with Jupiter in the 9th, because I feel like I can't think of any right now. But yeah, that's basically Jupiter in the 9th. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the 10th house. So 10th house is all about career. It's about social status. It's about building a legacy. I feel like 10th house is all about the sense of building something. It's also about your reputation too, and just kind of how you approach the world. So of course, when it comes to Jupiter in the 10th, you might have a lot of luck when it comes to career. Like you can be someone who just always gets hired on the spot, or you just have a lot of luck getting your dream job. Like you don't have to like apply to 10,000 places to get one callback. Like you can just go to the first place you apply to and get the job. And this does indicate quite a bit of success when it comes to career. Like I said, you probably do work really hard for what you have, but at the same time, you do have just like luck when it comes to career. You might get really great business deals, or earn a lot of money through career, earn a lot of prosperity through your career. And then you might have a career that, and then also you might have a career that involves travel. If you're not literally traveling, you might be in a career that you're in like interactions with like different countries or people from different countries often. It's kind of similar to Jupiter in the 6th in that way, because maybe you have like a lot of international clients, or just in general, you have a lot of like experience with international affairs through your job or through your career. And then also when it pertains to career, you're not going to do anything that doesn't make you happy. I will say this is definitely like an entrepreneur placement. This is someone who doesn't want to feel confined in a job. You don't want to feel trapped or limited in any way. You want to be your own boss. You want to be the best and expand your like career on your own terms. You don't want to be controlled. So you can be somebody who, maybe you're in a job where it's not too confining for you, or you can be someone who's your own boss, your own entrepreneur. This is definitely like a successful entrepreneur type of placement. And I believe that Nicki Minaj has this placement, and I feel like she's a good example of this, where she is someone who has a lot of success with her career. She travels internationally for her career. She is highly favored in her career too. I think Jupiter in the 10th manifests as somebody who is highly favored in whatever career they are in. This is also someone with a career that you might be like a teacher or a guru. This is somebody with a great ability to teach others and be a great leader. Like I said, Nicki Minaj is a good example, I feel like, because she's just naturally a great leader type of person. Overall, with Jupiter in the 10th, you really do benefit in career. Whatever career you're in, you do benefit from, whether it's financially, in terms of experiences, or meeting people, or networking. You're just really blessed in that sense. You also might be really blessed when it comes to social climbing or social status. Like you might just you might just be friends with really powerful people, or somehow become top status in whatever career you're in without really trying. One thing I will say about Jupiter in the 10th is that I don't know if it's a challenge necessarily, but you might change careers often. This is definitely not someone to stay in the career, like one career for their whole lives. They're gonna like change often. They're gonna change based on what makes them feel happy at the moment. So they're not gonna stick to one thing. They're gonna do a bunch of things, which can be challenging just because you can be confused on what to pick. But once you do choose something, you excel at it. This is the type of placement where you just like excel at any career you're in. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the 11th house. So Jupiter in the 11th house, I mentioned in my wealth placements video, it is a wealth placement, but 11th house is all about networks. It's about community, social networks, technology, social media, anything having to do with social dynamics and networks. The 11th house does rule. So with Jupiter in the 11th, you're somebody who benefits from social networks. You benefit from your friends. You might just have very powerful friends, friends with money. You might like financially benefit from your friends too. But either way, whatever networks you're a part of, you do benefit from. So if you're watching this and you're somebody who doesn't like to network, or I don't know, it depends on your chart, even if you do network and you don't even try that hard or just go to networking events, you can just meet a really powerful person that can change the course of your life, or really help your social status in some way, or help your financial status in some way. Either way, you do benefit a lot from social networking. And you can really benefit online as well, especially like with my generation. You're somebody who could probably like start an online business and really excel at it. Like I said, this does rule social media and technology. So maybe you even have you make a blog and get a lot of followers on it. This is definitely somebody who can gain a social media following like that. Like you can gain a huge following without really trying too hard. And because you have the ability to gain such a huge following online, you can monetize it, make money from it. You're somebody who can make money online without really trying. Maybe you start an Etsy shop or drop shipping. Anything having to do with technology or online endeavors, you will excel at and make a lot of money from, potentially. And you're definitely somebody who likes to learn from other people. Like I said, when it comes to social networks, you might just gain a lot of knowledge from people in your networks. And this knowledge is very valuable. Anything coming from social networks is very valuable. So you might learn very valuable knowledge from people that changes your life or changes the course of your destiny or financial destiny. Either way, wealth comes from a lot of different people you meet, whether it be financial wealth, knowledge wealth, experience wealth. It doesn't just have to be money. And then I said earlier that this is a wealth placement. And then just to clarify, it's a wealth placement because 11th house does represent gains too. So if you think about the 10th house, it's how we work hard and have a career. And then 11th house is how we gain from that career. So you do have the potential to gain a lot from your career as well. And just be very blessed when it comes to gaining from your career and your status. Okay, so let's talk about Jupiter in the 12th house. So 12th house is all about spirituality. It's about the sense of imagination. It's also about the subconscious mind. I always call the 12th house the blind spot in the chart because it's kind of like everything we don't see. It represents everything that's kind of intangible to us. It's not really about the physical aspects of life. So with Jupiter in the 12th, you might be very spiritually gifted. Maybe you're very spiritually inclined. You can have the ability to have prophetic dreams, maybe when you go to sleep and you might receive messages in your dreams, or you're just overall a very spiritual person. We can look at someone like Beyonce. She has Jupiter in the 12th, and you can tell she has a very spiritual side to her, even though it's not very obvious because 12th house is the blind spot. 12th house is what's hidden. So you might kind of hide your spirituality a bit, but even if you do hide your spirituality, you are very spiritually connected, whether you like it or not. You can also be someone with hidden talents. Like I said, there's this sense of hiddenness with the 12th house. So you can have hidden talents that you don't really express necessarily, but you do have. And you can have a very abundant imagination or abundant creativity. Anything you imagine, you can almost create. Oh my gosh, this is I think Beyonce said during Baychella, she was I dreamed up this performance, the whole theme of it. She said she dreamed it when she had her twins. And I feel that's a manifestation of Jupiter in the 12th, where it's you have these prophetic dreams that you want to actualize. You have these visions of things you want to create. You might be very great at manifestation. It's almost whatever you can visualize has the ability to happen, has the ability to manifest. And a lot of people do have this ability, but with you, it's almost exaggerated because you have Jupiter in the 12th house. So anything you can imagine can happen. This is a great manifestation placement, I feel like. And then you can also be somebody who's very much about self-discovery. I think Jupiter in the 12th is so beneficial because a lot of times with 12th house is about our subconscious mind. And a lot of times people don't want to deal with their subconscious, but with you dive right into it. And you love learning about the deeper parts of yourself. You love learning about the intuitive parts of yourself. You're all about this sense of self-discovery. And because of that, you just might have this endless like curiosity about you. You're very curious about spirituality, about the other side of life, about different realms, different dimensions. You're very spiritually curious in that sense. And I think the only challenge would be with this placement is like maybe you get too lost in your fantasies or you get too lost in your dreams, or maybe you have a hard time differentiating like your dreams from reality. But like I said, it's like a two-sided coin because you have a really great manifestation ability, but sometimes you can just be too caught up in that imagination and not enough in reality. So if you have any of these placements, comment down below how they manifest for you, and just let me know how you benefit from Jupiter. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in my next one.